Hello, Mustang football fans, and welcome once again to another edition of the Cory Sauter Show here at Studio One, Marshall Local Cable Access, and online at SMSUmustangs.com. Glad you could be with us. I'm Kelly Loft, Athletic Communications Director at Southwest Minnesota State University, and we're going to talk about an exciting Mustang football victory with the head coach Cory Sauter as the Mustangs on the road beat MSU Moorhead 27-20. Mustangs score 15 straight points in the final quarter to get the victory and cap it off with a touchdown with 3 seconds to go. Charlie Kern to Anthony Dean. And we'll take a look at the highlights and talk much more about the football game here during the next 25 minutes or so. And Coach, welcome back this week. You have dried off, and I tell you what, there's lots to talk about in the game, a lot of ups and downs. We'll see the highlights. The fans that couldn't watch the game or just listened and heard how wet it was. It's something else, playing on a grass field, one of 3 in the conference out of 16 that have grass, and unfortunately we're playing on that particular surface, and it did held up pretty well for a while. But Coach, just talk about, first of all, the conditions. Probably some of the worst most of your coaching staff, yourself, all the players have ever played in.
Well, it was very difficult conditions, and as a player and as a coach, it's probably the most precipitation that I've been involved with, and it definitely makes things very difficult, especially on the offensive side. Defensively, you like to be in these types of ball games because it typically makes it a one-dimensional ball game, and that definitely favors the defense. And so it was one of those games where you just take your game plan and kind of just throw it out the window, and you dial up about 4 or 5 different plays that you feel good about, and see which team can execute them the best. And it was one of those games too where special teams became a very important part of the game. But all in all, it was a tough battle. I mean, we knew it was going to be a dogfight, and guys hung in there, and but it definitely wasn't fun to be on the sideline if you weren't playing and you're just standing in pure rain. And so hopefully we won't have too many more of those this season.
Yeah, I tell you, the unique thing about it, like you mentioned, is just it rained the entire time. For about an hour and a half prior to kickoff, the rain started, and we kept checking the radar. And as you mentioned, it wasn't going to stop. And that was the unique thing about the whole game, is that it just didn't stop. And so a lot of times we played in where it stops after a while, but I suppose by halftime it didn't even matter if it would have stopped because the field was that wet. But just talk about, as you mentioned, it makes you one-dimensional, and both offenses like to get it going, and Moorhead obviously couldn't do that as well. But just as a quarterback and the handling of the football, talk about the difficulties that not only Charlie Kern had as a quarterback, but the center snaps.
Right.
The officials had to make a ruling, which was the correct call, but we couldn't even really snap the ball at times.
Right, it was very difficult. One, that the grass that they had there was pretty tall. It was pretty thick grass, high, and so the ball nestled into that grass pretty deep. It's like when you're playing golf and you hit it in the rough, and it's sometimes hard to get it out of there. Well, same thing with the snap. I mean, when you add water and the weight of the football and the grass, I mean, all those 3 things.
And add some mud on there as well.
Yeah, exactly. Throw some mud in there and everything else. Balls are just going to slip out of a center's hand just before it even snaps it. It starts to move, and it really can't snap it back. And so we had quite a few of those infractions over the course of the game. That was half the battle, just getting the snap. And as you mentioned, both teams are no huddle, fast tempo, shotgun, style of offenses, and so we were, as a quarterback, Charlie, his biggest thing was just making sure we had the football by the end of that snap. Whether it would roll back or come back pretty hard and go through your hands. There's just a lot that goes through your mind. But with a fast tempo offense, that wasn't even a part of our repertoire, just because they had to stop the play, wipe the ball down, set it down. So there really wasn't any advantage when it comes to those things, and it was just a crazy game, that's for sure. And like I said, we only ran a few different types of plays, just because pretty limited what we could do to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. Well, of course, the Mustangs get the victory, 27-20. It was a record-breaking day in several fronts in the ball game for the Mustangs. Individually, Tyler Tondrum, the junior running back, a school record 343 yards rushing in the ball game. The Mustang offense racked up over 400 yards of rushing yards, which is another school record. And overall, despite the conditions, to be able to run the football that particularly well. And we did have one big run at 71 yards, but other than that, it was just grinded out, and Tondrum kept his feet most of the time, and just an exceptional job by him and that entire offensive line.
Well, like you said, it didn't feel like we had that many yards rushing, because we didn't have a ton of those 70, 60, 50-yarders. It was 15 yards here, 10 there, 20 there. So it was kind of one of those, it started to accumulate, but at the end of the game, it felt like maybe we had about 200 yards rushing, that type of deal. But guys plugged away as an offensive lineman, as a defensive lineman. These are fun games to be in because everything's going to be on their shoulders to get things going. And I thought our offensive line controlled the line of scrimmage. They did a nice job opening up some creases, and Tondrum really hit the holes with authority. Our receivers did a solid job blocking on the perimeter, and we were able to gain some yardage that way. And we mixed it up just enough to keep them off balance. We mixed in a couple throws in there. Some of them were effective, but a lot of them weren't. But we at least had to have a threat of a pass. And so it was just, hold on by the skin of your teeth and, making sure we're not turning the ball over. That was the biggest concern that you have in this type of ball game.
Well, obviously the whole process of the game was basically who made the fewest mistakes. And obviously you talked about special teams, and Mustangs had a crucial turnover. You get a stop on a punt, they recover it and have a short field, and then there's some penalties on a drive that they put together. I think they had about 3 third down penalties on the Mustangs that kept drives alive, even a 4th down one. And at times you just thought the brakes weren't going our way, and we did have one more turnover than Moorhead did, but despite all that, the guys just stuck through it. I think that's the most important thing, how they just play the entire 60 minutes of football.
Right. It wasn't looking pretty for a while there, especially in that third quarter. I mean, offensively, we were struggling. We went down by 8 points, which could have easily been 9 points, and they struggled on the extra point, and that kept us within one possession. That was a big play for us, just from a mentality standpoint, just keeping us in it. But guys kept plugging. I mean, they really did. And, we were able to get enough big plays there in the fourth quarter. We ended up scoring the touchdown to go down by 2. And then, the work isn't done. You still got to get the 2-point conversion. We were able to capitalize on that and tie it up. And then, you're almost to a point where you're thinking, all right, let's get ready for overtime here. Realistically, for us to drive down the field with 1 minute left on our own, I think, 35-yard line, the odds are against you in that situation. And so there was just a lot of emotion going into those last couple series, trying to figure out, what was going to end up happening on that last drive or two. But like I said, guys really battled, guys believed, guys stuck with it, and really that was the theme going into this week, even before all the weather and everything. It was just the fact that we put so much work into this game week that the last thing you want to do is do all that work and then not get anything from it, not get paid anything for doing all that work. So that was the message this week, and it ended up being very appropriate for our guys.
Yeah, crucial play. Again, the Dragons converted or got a penalty called against Southwest on 4th down near the goal line. They go in, they score, they go up 20-12, and probably the play of the game. They botched their extra point attempt, kept it an 8-point lead for the Dragons. You go down, score, tie it up, and then go back and forth. They had a chance. You get a punt. Mustangs go down to about the 25, 20-yard line, go for it on 4th down, come up just about an inch short. Moorhead has a chance to win it. They don't really move the ball. And as you mentioned, you get the ball with 1:11 to go at your own 35, and maybe the biggest play offensively for you guys, first play, Tondrum, a 22-yard rush, and that puts you in a spot where, maybe we can get a chance to, I don't know if you could kick a field goal if you got down to maybe the 5 or 10-yard line. And I think that's what we kind of thought upstairs was, well, maybe the goal is to get to the 5 and you can kick maybe, but nonetheless you get a chance to throw it in the end zone for the game-winning touchdown.
Yeah, no, I don't think we were thinking too much about field goals. But if it had to be on the last play, obviously we would have tried to kick one. And we were very fortunate to get that big play, just to get that thing going. And then I think we converted on a 3rd and 15 late in that drive to get us in position. We ended up going down the field, and we had an opportunity to spike the football, right? So we have one timeout in our pocket. We're going, it's 1st and 10. We just got a 1st down, and we were lined up to spike the football, to give us, a couple downs to a couple shots at the end zone. Well, we ended up, botching that deal, and so we had a burner last time out. On that last series. So that's when we ended up dialing up the throw to Anthony Dean in the end zone, and it worked out for us. It's one of those plays that seemed like it just took forever for the ball to get to Anthony, and he came up with it and made a big score for us.
Well, and he's done that throughout his career as a Mustang. Had a big touchdown game-winning against Upper Iowa a few years ago, last year against Northern State, keeping that drive alive, and eventual game winner and field goal, and then of course 3 seconds to go, and as Charlie was quoted, I think in one of the media outlets, it's like a shot put. You just got to throw the football up there, and he made a perfect pass, and Anthony came with it clean as it could be, and the Mustangs get the win.
Yeah, no, I mean, you couldn't draw up a better ending for the ball game, and it was just good for us it's just a big road win for us, especially the circumstances and battling back and everything else. We needed to win that one, and it had been tough to swallow to lose on the road in those circumstances, and we're very fortunate to come out with a victory.
Well, one thing that makes it very unique, obviously, going against the elements and trying to game plan and get your team to help win, but there's so many decisions that you have to make because of the conditions, because of our special teams with an injury to our punter. I mean, you're probably making decisions, you're going, if you looked at paper, going for it in your own 30-yard line, but the punts aren't barely getting off, so you're only going to gain a few yards, and both teams going for it. And we even thought Moorhead, with about 2.5 minutes, was going to go for it at their own 25-yard line. They did try to draw us off, and they eventually punt, but the decisions that had to be made, just incredible because of the conditions that probably never have to make again in your coaching career.
Well, not that I know everything about football and all the decisions that go with it, but if you had that manual with basic logic, you just kind of take that and throw it over your shoulder and, all right, let's see what we really need to do, based off the knowledge that we have from previous couple snaps in the ball game. And we had a circumstance where we decided to try to pooch punt it, and that one backfired on us as well. It was one of those where we kind of drew up in the dirt before the game. All right, if we get in a certain situation where we're trying to knock one out, so we got it all set up, and we ended up having our running back a little bit deeper than he should, and Charlie ends up kicking our tailback, and we get a 3-yard punt or whatever it was, and so there was some moments in there where you kind of shake your head and wonder what's going on here, and but again, it happened for both teams, and I think we had 5 impact plays on special teams. They had 3, so we ended up having a positive on that end of things, which allowed us to maintain that good field position. It almost felt like we're always around that 35-40 yard line of their field, and you can tell because the field itself had just a worn out spot there. I mean, that's where the football game was played until that fourth quarter, and so it was a unique situation.
Well, definitely, you look at the Mustang defense coach, they limit the Dragons 264 yards of offense, and we're put in some tough situations because of a turnover on special teams. But I think in the first half, the Dragons started 5 of possessions in Mustang territory, so you got to really tip a cap to the Mustang defense to make some plays when they had to, and some different guys stepped up. I mean, obviously you get like Antoine Phillips making his first career start, has 7 or 8 tackles. Blake Pennick had a career-high tackles, and a lot of different guys made some plays, and including Donovan Woods, probably the biggest play, down by 8, gets an interception, and then you go down and tie the game up.
Right. Well, there's no question we put them in some bad spots, and a couple areas that we really improved from week 1 to week 2. One of which was tackling. I think we had about 4 or 5 total missed tackles, as opposed to 25 in our first game. So we made huge improvements there. We were able to get off the field on 3rd downs, and that was critical for us. But as you mentioned, a guy like Antoine Phillips, who was our Defensive Player of the Week, a kid that has been just plugging away, getting better each and every week throughout fall camp, you name it, and he had a great game. And you need to have that. You need to have guys step up and do some things when the game's on the line. And we had quite a few guys that did that on the defensive side.
Well, some of the numbers from the ball game on Saturday Saturday. Southwest 24 first down, 16 for the Dragons. SMSU 493 yards of offense, 264 for Moorhead. And again, Coach, you got to run, despite all that, a lot of plays. Again, 87 total plays for the Mustangs in the game. Third down conversions, Mustangs 6 of 18, then 0 of 6 on fourth down. Dragons 4 of 17, 0 of 3 on fourth. And you'll see the highlights. I mean, it's just, you really couldn't do much of anything, and it's kind of a toss-up in those situations. And, give the Dragons credit, obviously, but I think, sometimes that can neutralize the better team. And I think, obviously, our side, that's kind of how it worked out. But nonetheless, the Mustangs get the victory and get the win and go to 1-1 overall. We talked about the contest, and you'll be able to see. Maybe you can't even tell how hard it's coming down here, but let's take a look at the highlights from the game at Nemzik Stadium up in Moorhead as the Mustangs taking on MSU Moorhead. And we start off offensively, Coach, here in this first half. The Mustangs starting up, Charlie Kern getting a 14-yard pass right here. The field conditions and the jersey is pretty normal at white here, but 14-yard at a tandem.
Yeah, one of our early plays in the ball game, first drive, and one of our few pass attempts. Just a little screen out to the side, and you can see we got some good blocks on the edges, and allows us to get out of our territory.
Mustangs not able to get a score on that opening drive, and then we go to defense and a third down pass break up here by Donovan Woods.
Yep, you can see Donovan right on that hip of the receiver. He gets his head and eyes and hands around right at the last second to get a good distraction. And like I said, we've been good on third downs in this ball game.
Well, here's the big run for Tondrum, 71-yard touchdown run, the longest run for Southwest in quite some time. Great job on that left side of the line.
Right, and you can see he splits really the safety and the corner, and once you have a crease for him, he's pretty good. He can run. He's just as fast as any other running back that we've ever had here.
And you can see at this time, teams both can try to move the football, throwing it wise, and here a third down stop by Antoine Phillips, as we mentioned, first career start and career high tackles.
Yeah, but you can just see his effort and pursuit. I mean, he never stops. He's taking a great angle, makes a great tackle.
And here's a big fourth down conversion by the Mustangs. Donovan Woods helping make a play.
Yep, Donovan had a really, really nice ball game for us, really got into the receiver's face and disrupted their passing game.
Here's Tondrum, 19-yard rush over the left side, and you can see the field just starting to get worse and worse throughout the highlights.
We had several inside runs, but here's one where we were able to get outside. He has nice vision where he saw the hole and was able to bounce it and get some pretty good yardage.
Nice game by Deshaun Miller, and here's a tackle for loss here. They try to screen it to the outside.
Yep, you can see he's taking a nice angle from the inside out, making sure that nothing gets cut back inside, and then he goes ahead and takes down the ball carrier. He had a lot of nice hits in the ball game.
Second quarter, Mustangs, Charlie Kern, nice fake, takes it up for 17 yards.
And Tondrum had a good amount of carries, going in this series, and here's one where Charlie just pulls it and comes out the other end.
Mustangs trail 14-6. They cut it down to a 2-point deficit as Tondrum breaks 3 for a touchdown.
And you'll see just a lot of defenders near the line of scrimmage, and that's one of those things where you're either going to get stuffed or you're going to find a hole, and here we ended up finding a hole for a big play.
And a sack here by J.J. Bobowitz and A.J. Page ending the first half.
Yep, ball squirts through the QB's hands, and A.J. and Bob were right there to seal the sack, and again, you need to take advantage of those situations.
For the Mustangs and the Dragons, now trailing 14-12 Mustangs at halftime. And Coach, you go into the locker room, and what are some of the things you guys can do to try to dry off somehow? But nonetheless, you were able to, what kind of adjustments can you make at halftime?
Well, we were pretty limited, what we could do. I mean, you saw all the players; they were toweling off and, getting the air blower dryers, trying to get somewhat dry. I don't know if we really could do that, but for the most part, we just decided on, all right, these are the couple plays that we're going to really focus on going in the second half. And, we were looking at about 4 or 5 different ones. That's what we're going to emphasize, and, that was realistically all we had to do. I mean, it was more just a mindset change. Going in that second half, knowing that, the conditions are going to be bad for us, they're going to be bad for them. We just need to play smart Mustang football. If we did that, I thought we were winning up front, winning up front with the offensive line and the defensive line. As long as we played smart, did consistent special teams play, we're going to win that field position and ultimately get a couple in that.
And of course, you stuck in the third quarter, Coach. You're down 14-12, and for the second straight week, you look at some of the numbers and things would have changed, obviously, the score. But Tonder, another long touchdown run called back because of a penalty, and you had some momentum, but that was that point where you're just like, boy, the breaks aren't going our way, and instead of being up in the third quarter, you're still trailing after that penalty calls back, and it was so hard to move the football. Plays like that made it that just more difficult to score when you get a big break and then you still got to go back, and now it's 1st and 10 back at the 35 instead of a touchdown.
Yeah, those big plays were few and far between, and when you have an opportunity to make one, it was hard to just swallow the fact that, all right, we got to go and do it again, and so it was tough sledding, for a long time there in the third quarter. We didn't have all the answers, and we were able to catch some breaks and going into the fourth quarter, and ultimately were able to find a way.
Well, of course, the Mustangs trailed, as I mentioned, 14-12 at halftime. So we go to the third quarter, Mustangs and the Dragons, and we'll take a look at the second half highlights here from Nemzik Stadium. Mustangs on defense, and here's a tackle for loss right away for Southwest.
Yeah, we had quite a few of them in the afternoon, and you really can't see on this film. It's just a hodgepodge of bodies, but we definitely were getting a lot of good penetration plays.
One of the best catches you'll see. Great one-handed grab by Condon, 26-yard gain.
Yeah, I mean, this would have been a great catch in a dry ball game, but to make a catch like that in the circumstances was just phenomenal. What a great play for him.
A couple plays defensively now for the Mustangs. Here's Antoine Phillips with a tackle for loss.
Yep, Antoine, very active this afternoon, and he was our player of the week on defense.
Mustangs trail 20-12, and a big interception here by Donovan Woods.
Yep, here it's, I believe, 4th down, and not only get the interception, but those are valuable yards after the pick, getting some extra yards for field position purposes.
So Woods with his second career interception, first of the season, sets up the Mustangs, and then they come down here in a couple of big runs by Tonder. First a 25-yarder, and then the touchdown run, but much-needed drive by the offense.
Right, and we just needed to get out of the hole and create some big plays, and we were able to do that, and guys just kept plugging away, and you can see we bounce it to the outside here again. They were starting to take a few more risks, defensively, and we were able to find a crease. I mean, that's really what it comes down to in these types of ball games.
And it was a touchdown that made it 20-18 as Tondem off that left side again scores, and then moments later, big 2-point conversion by Charlie Kern.
Big play here. Charlie ends up pulling it and keeping it, and that's a huge play in the ball game. I mean, there's no question, and kept the legs churning, and ultimately crossed the goal line.
And here is the game-winning touchdown for the Mustangs, Kern to Anthony Dean.
This is a 20-25-yard touchdown pass that felt like about a 50-yard pass. I mean, it's just one of those where he had to give everything he had to get it there, and goes up, makes a play. Underthrown ball, and Anthony's bigger than their corner. He is about 4 or 5 inches bigger, and just goes up and makes the catch.
Yes, a pretty incredible comeback by the Mustangs to drive down, as you mentioned, 65 yards in the last minute and 11 seconds, and 3 seconds to go. Mustangs get the victory there, and don't have to stick in that overtime and play more, and who knows what would have happened then. It would have been tough for both teams to move that ball 25 yards, but nonetheless the Mustangs get the win. Dean finishes the game with 3 catches for 24 yards to lead the way for the Mustangs. Kern, 9 of 20 passing, 77 yards and a touchdown. And again, Tondem, school record, 343 yards rushing, just incredible numbers, 3 touchdowns. He was the NSIC Offensive Player of the Week. No surprise there. There were some pretty impressive numbers around the conference, some other players, but well-deserved for Tondem. And obviously with that numbers, he's now ranking number 1 in the Division II in rushing yards per game, and he's also at 343, the highest in any division, FBS, FCS, Division II, or Division III, the highest rushing total. You look at the numbers, and again, we're still trying to comprehend it all, but it's still 343. I mean, 143 is a great day,
right?
Let alone, I mean, that's a season for a lot of guys. And somebody asked, boy, he's a good player. Is he new or not? And I'm like, well, that just shows you how good our running backs were the last few years with Warren Matthews and Gannon Moore, and getting his chance. And great to see that for Tyler.
Right, and that was one of the reasons why we were very just cautious how we talked about Tondrum, is the fact that he did some really good things in spring football and fall camp, but you always want to make sure that when it's an actual football game, can he actually produce? Does he change the way he plays? And for Tyler, he changes in a good way. He gets better in a ball game, and that's a lot of carries, and that's a lot of work for a running back in one game. He took almost every snap, and towards the end of that ball game, he was really worn down. He got to a point where we were to the limit with him, and if we would have went in overtime, it would have been tough for him to continue where he was at. But no, we're very pleased with him. He's got game-breaking speed, and he's been just very good for us. He's been good at reading his blocks and everything else. So we're very, very happy about his performance, no question.
Yeah, well, and obviously I think the players and coaching staff can be very happy to get it home again on the surface at the Regional Events Center, the Schwann Regional Events Center, and the Mustangs returning home. A different day now. Remember, Friday night, the Mustangs will take on Minot State. It's a 6 o'clock kickoff at the Schwann Regional Events Center. Friday night, September the 20th. The game moved up a day because we've got SMSU soccer in the afternoon and the Pursuit of Excellence band competition on Saturday night. So we were able to work it out to have Minot come to town on Friday. And Minot, a very good team. They beat Augustana this past weekend, Coach, in a triple overtime thriller. And they're new to the conference. First time we played them in quite some time. And what do we know about the Beavers? Obviously, you still have a lot of game planning to do this week. But Minot's going to be coming out riding high after that big win against Augustana on Saturday night.
Well, it's amazing what a win can do for your confidence, and they're 1-1, we're 1-1, and so I expect it to be a pretty good battle, Friday night, and I know our players are excited about playing at home again and playing a Friday night. It's kind of old school, going back to a lot of these kids playing high school on Friday nights, and now they get to do that again. And but they're going to be a tough team to beat. They've got some talented kids, really on both sides of the football. They're playing at a high level right now, and they're playing with confidence. And they're a team that will take some risks. They'll do some things that may be a little more unconventional, that you don't always see on a week-to-week basis. So we're really not sure what to prepare for, because they're a little bit different than they were last year in a lot of ways, and we only have 2 games to go off of this year, and but on the flip end, they have 2 games to prepare against us, and we have 2 very different types of ball games, and so it'll be a unique game. I think it's going to just come down to who executes their offense and defense better. It's just, it's such a short week that, are we going to have a very complex game plan? It's going to be difficult, there's no question, because, we just only have about 2 good solid days of practice before our ball game. And but guys got to be ready to go. The good thing is we came out pretty healthy from our previous game, and we should have almost everybody back for Friday.
It should be fun. Again, 6 o'clock at the Regional Events Center, the Schwann Regional Events Center, Mustangs in Minot State. 6 o'clock at the on Friday night against the Beavers and the Mustangs. So come on out to cheer on the Mustangs this Friday, September 20th, 6 o'clock at the Schwann Regional Event Center. Well, that wraps up this week's episode of the Cory Sauter Show. There was lots to talk about and lots of highlights. We appreciate you for stopping by and watching this week's show. For the head coach, Cory Sauter, I'm Kelly Loft. Thanks for watching, and until next week, go Mustangs.